Welcome to the basics video, where I will go over the basics of the phone that the average person will care about. This video is for the ZTE Axon 7 Mini. Feel free to check out my specs video for a more detailed explanation of this phone. This ZTE made Axon 7 Mini has a 16 megapixel back camera along with an 8 megapixel front camera. Now the cameras sound good, but they aren't anything to brag about. The images come out nice during the day, but they don't look that good in close situations or at night. In most cases, what you'll have to do is you'll have to click the screen so you can focus on the object that you're trying to capture, or else you might miss the moment. The camera is limited to a max of 1080p recording at 30 frames per second, which is annoying because the size of the camera would make you think that you can actually capture 4K video, but that limitation is most likely due to the processor. This phone lacks optical image stabilization, but that kind of makes sense. This phone is a budget phone after all. The front camera isn't that spectacular either and requires some time to get used to make sure you can snap the perfect picture. I did not expect this phone to be good for taking pictures, and in a way, I was kind of right, so the camera category receives a 6.5 out of 10. The software in this phone is a little bit strange. It seems like it wants to be stock Android, yet at the same time it's missing things from stock, but it also has some more features. Double tap to wake is in this phone, which is nice, but it reacts slow to it. Sometimes it doesn't react at all. There's a bunch of software that ZTE puts into this phone, like Me Pop, which is a button that helps with one-handed use along with a bunch of gestures and motion features. Along with that, this phone includes a few useful ZTE apps, which you can use or disable. This phone lacks the always-on display or any other active display for that matter. Given the time it was released, it wasn't entirely a feature that every phone had, but it still would have been nice to have it on this phone. There is a fingerprint scanner on this phone, but you can't do much with it other than unlock the phone. No swiping for notifications here. I'm starting to believe that this phone won't get Android 8.0 Oreo just because of the age of this phone. Overall, I would say that the software is usable, so it will get a 7 out of 10. The battery was alright. At first it was pretty good, but after letting it sit for a while, the battery actually got worse. For the size and processor, the battery is decent, but it clearly isn't perfect for long-term usage. After 14 hours and 20 minutes of usage, my phone was left with 28% and 46 minutes of that was screen on time. Another day I got almost 13.5 hours of usage with 34% remaining, and 1 hour of that was screen on time. Another day I got 14.5 hours of usage out of this battery with 17% remaining, and 1.5 hours of that was screen on time. All of these figures are with the brightness all the way up. Yeah, those numbers are pretty bad. I'm not sure if this battery goes bad over time or if there's something wrong with the software, but I remember the battery lasting a lot longer. A while ago, I was able to get 17 hours of usage out of this battery with 34% remaining, and now it seems like I can't even do that. Overall, the battery category receives a weak 4 out of 10. Yes, 4. So, there wasn't a ZTE Axon 6 Mini, but there was a ZTE Axon Mini, and that's what we will be comparing this phone to. Personally, I believe that the front and back were redesigned to look a lot cleaner and more premium, and this is most likely because the phone is a mini version of a flagship phone. The Axon 7 Mini is slightly larger in width and height, but it is also slightly thinner. This phone is also a little bit heavier. The back camera was bumped up from a 13 megapixel camera to a 16 megapixel sensor, along with adding another LED for the flash unit, but the front camera stayed the same at 8 megapixels. The fingerprint scanner is now round rather than being a square. This is definitely a random design change, but I think it looks better. The volume and power buttons are all now on one side rather than being separated. The processor pretty much stayed the same, but has been renamed from the Snapdragon 616 to the 617 because the frequencies of the cores are exactly the same. The GPU also stayed the same, along with the 3 GB of RAM. The battery size was decreased by 95 mAh for whatever reason. As for charging, ZTE swapped out the micro USB plug for a newer USB-C plug. Pretty cool. Lastly, there are minor additions like Dolby Atmos and Bluetooth 4.1. Overall, I would say that the Axon 7 Mini is a very minor upgrade over the Axon Mini, so this category gets a 5 out of 10. Now this phone is pretty cheap, but if you still want to fix it, you might be a little bit disappointed. I've looked pretty much everywhere and I can't find the screen at all. Everywhere that I look that has this screen is either sold out or unavailable. The camera lens is a little bit difficult to find and will run you about $55 to fix or about $25 to do it yourself. The charging port can be replaced, but only if you know how to solder. I would assume that repair places will charge about $65 to $85 to fix it for you, or if you know how to solder, it will cost you less than $10. Clearly, the battery will need to be replaced at some point, but you can only find these batteries used for about $25 to $40. If you have a repair place do it for you, they might charge you somewhere around $65 to $85. Like I said, it's very hard to find these parts, and I'm not too sure if ZTE will fix this phone for you if you send it to them. Honestly, you're better off just buying another phone if you manage to break the important parts of this phone. With this said, the phone seems fairly durable, so the score won't be that bad. Overall, I would say that the Axon 7 Mini gets a 5.5 out of 10 for durability and repair cost. Now, should you buy this phone? With a score of 56%, I would say no, don't buy this phone, unless you're looking for a decent, cheap phone. It is a nice phone with some nice specs, but it also has some weak specs to make the phone decent at best. The screen is amazing given what it is, but the battery and processor wear this phone down. If you need a phone to get you by because you're waiting for the newest flagship phone to come out, then go ahead and buy this. They can be found for under $200 US, which is pretty good. I would not recommend buying this phone if you plan on using this phone for a long term or having it take over a flagship phone to save money. This is not the phone for that. The front-facing speakers, however, are some of the best speakers I've heard in a cheap phone in a very long time. I hope you learned something from these videos, but now I want to learn something from you. Should mid-range phones exist, or should you just buy a 1-year-old flagship phone? Let me know in the comment section or on Twitter at MattofRWR, and feel free to follow me on the social media listed above. Also, subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos like this. Every sub helps. Thanks for watching.